Hello, beautiful. Welcome to another Thursday Talk with me, Suzanna Kaye, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I want to say hi really quickly. I see Cheryl's already here and Peggy is here. She says, ciao all. Nice to see you both today. Welcome. As you hop in, let me know where you're joining me from. I always love to hear that. And tell me a little bit more about what you've been working on lately. What are you doing today? So today we are talking about my top 5 favorite paper organizing tricks. So these are some of the techniques that I use whenever I'm organizing papers for clients or teaching any of the students in the Paper Path course how to organize papers. So I wanted to share these with you today. Now, really quick again, I wanted to say hi to Thomas, and Peggy says that she's here from near Tampa. Welcome, and fellow Floridian. Thomas is joining from Berlin, Germany, which is awesome. I'm actually going to be in Essen, Germany, sometime in October. So it's exciting to have a fellow German on. Maria's here from Michigan, and I'm glad that you're looking forward to it, Thomas. Hi, Joyce. Good to see you. And we've got one of our Facebook users from New York. Susan's here in New Jersey. Roberta's here. Welcome, welcome. Well, I'm super excited about today because I love, as you know, talking about paper organizing. Is it because I love organizing papers? No, it is because papers were one of my most dreaded tasks most of my life. I was not born organized, and papers were the hardest thing for me to get organized and the most stressful because not knowing how to find the important paper that you need, or not knowing what might be in that paper pile that is going to be really urgent and basically catch fire in a bad way. Those were so stressful, those thoughts. And I was having those all the time whenever I was struggling with papers. So that's why I love to talk about organizing papers, because it was a struggle for me. And these are some of the ways that might be a little bit non-traditional and out of the box, not your normal ways of organizing. But for me, the normal ways did not work. So that is why I created a lot of these techniques for myself and for my clients who also struggled with papers. So if you have struggled with papers and you feel like you're just never getting ahead, you've got paper piles, you've got old files that have not gone through, and it's stressing you out, then this is the place for you. And we're going to be talking about papers for the next about month or so on the Thursday Talks, and we will have an action file incoming papers challenge for you in October that's free. So this is all about papers. All right, really quickly, I want to say hi real fast to some of the others who are joining. And Thomas says, hardly welcome, since I'm going to be heading to Germany. Kathy's here, welcome. And our other Kathy from Florida, someone from New Jersey in Facebook. Ellen's here, and Penny, and Marilyn, Shirawan. I hope I said that right, Shirawan. Hey, how are you doing? Glad to have you here. And Julie, and Maggie, Nancy, Cindy, BT, and our YouTube person from Cape Cod. Awesome. All right, so let's hop into this. Really quickly, we're not talking about photos today. A lot of times photos are the other thing that people always want to hear about, but I do have next week, 1 week from today, on Thursday, the 29th of September. I had to look at my calendar. Thursday, September 29th is when I'm talking about photos in my photo organizing webinar. Sorry, I can't talk today. So if you want to join the photo organizing webinar, you can hop over to SuzannaKaye.com, click on the store link, and I will be live on Thursday, the 29th evening, and anybody who's registered will get a replay that they can keep and download and watch as many times as you want. All right, so top 5 paper organizing tricks. When you have a lot of old papers to go through, like old files, or if you've got paper piles, or perhaps you even have bags and laundry baskets and boxes of old papers that just need to be gone through, one of the ways that I like to separate out the active papers, I usually create active papers in one system. I have archive papers in another system, and then I have reference papers. So the active papers I will talk about in a minute or two, and I use those in the action file. That's where my most active papers go. Then the archive papers. The archive papers are the ones where you keep because you might need them, but they're not something you have to do something with. So these are like the old paid bills or the tax returns that have been filed. You just have to keep them, but you do not plan to actually necessarily use them. They're just there in case. So those are the archives. Those are in a separate system. And then there's the reference papers. So these could be anything from information that you put together so that you can quickly access it. So that would be something like the Spark Life binder with your important information, or if you have phone numbers and contact lists that you use often, or passwords that you write down. For one, you should not write down your passwords on paper, but that's a whole different video. All of these reference materials, these are the ones that you need easy to grab, but should not be necessarily just stuck in a file cabinet, right? So articles that you might have pulled out about health issues that you want to reference often, those would fall into some of these reference papers. So for reference papers, if they're ones that you want to regularly be able to access, I like to use binders for this. So as one example, would be like the Spark Life binder, right? The Spark Life binder is a reference binder, and this is a reference binder where you've put all of your important information into it. So you have all of your medical information, end of life, financial, insurance, all of your basic information, legal. It's all in one binder. And the nice thing is that it's easy to quickly grab because it's in a binder. Oh, my focus is just going crazy today. Let me see if I can fix this. Sorry about this. Sometimes the camera does not like to focus and sometimes it does. We'll work with that. So having reference materials in a binder with like items. So the Spark Life binder, this would be all of the essential information in your life where you can grab it, reference what you need, and then easily put it back on a bookshelf or wherever you're keeping it. Another reference binder would be something like your emergency medical folder, where you can grab it, you can actually take it with you to the doctor's office or the hospital. It has all that emergency medical information in it. So that's a type of reference binder. For me, some of the binders that I have also in my office for work, I have a binder for free handouts that I've given. So if I wanted to be able to find a resource that I've shared with people before that I've already created, then I can see which ones are available and easily figure out what I have, where it's stored at. I have it written down. So this is my binder of free things that I've handed out to people. And that's it's in my binder because if it was in a file cabinet in a folder, I could not quickly access it. And it's not as easy to just flip through and see everything in one place. So having reference material in a binder makes it much easier. I can keep it out near my desk on the shelf. I can access it quickly. I can add to it. I can slide it back in. So reference documents, keeping them in binders is really helpful. I would like to know, tell me in the comments if you use any binders for your own paper organization and what types of things you like to keep in binders. I always love to hear that. And really quickly, hi, Lavette. Good to see you here. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully, I think I said hi to everybody. If I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. But that was paper organizing trick number 1. Having your reference information in a binder so it's easy to grab and reference and put back. That works really well for like health articles that you've pulled out or exercise articles that you've pulled out of magazines. Any research that you've printed off the internet could go into a binder, that type of thing. Now, number 2, we talked about those archive papers, right? These are the papers that we keep because we might need them, but we don't actually have any tasks that we plan to do with them. So filed taxes, paid utility bills, if you are the type that likes to keep those for a year or so, credit reports, things like that, where if you needed them, you want access to them, but you don't have something in particular you need to do with it. So those would be archive papers because they're not active papers. And one of the things that I love to do with archive papers, especially archive papers that you're not sure that you will ever actually need and you do not need the original, I love to scan these. Now, not everybody is paperless, and that is okay. Sometimes you might just want to pick one category to try to start scanning. Scan it to something like Google Drive and even your smartphone. I have a scanning app called Genius Scan, like really smart Genius Scan. It's an easy way to scan papers and just send them to somewhere like Google Drive to store them. So try it maybe with just one category first. Maybe try just storing things that it could be like health articles that you've saved, but you aren't going to reference often. They're just there in case you wanted to look something up again. That's a great thing that you could easily scan to something like Google Drive. You don't need to worry about privacy, safety, anything like that if it does not have any personal information on it. Another thing that you could do is instead of scanning it online, you could scan it to a USB drive or a flash drive, those little thumb drives, or an external drive, something that you can plug into your computer, put files onto it, and take back off. That is great if you wanted to try out maybe just scanning the bills that you've paid, or just scanning your credit reports and any financial documents and put them just on the USB drive. And that way you don't have to worry about the security and privacy because it's not connected to the internet, right? So if you're not sure about scanning, start with just one category and see how it goes. And I'll be talking at noon for our member exclusive Thursday talks, the bonus Thursday talks. We'll be talking about different tools that I absolutely love for paper organizing. So products that you can get that make it easier. And one of the things that we will talk about is how to mark papers as scanned if you wanted to keep the original and scan them until you're confident that the scanning is something that you're feeling good with. But scanning papers that you won't need to refer to, if you're already great with scanning, then this is going to be easy for you. But that's going to save you so much space in your file cabinet. So much easier to purge. If you even decide to purge, you could just keep scanning papers and keep them forever. Just get a new hard drive if it gets full. But also, it's going to save space. It's going to save mental stress because you will know what's in your filing cabinet. Anything that you probably will not need to refer to is already scanned. So the filing cabinet could just have the things that you're accessing often. So scanning items that you probably will not need to refer to, but you have to keep just in case, as long as you don't have to keep that original, then scanning it is a really good way to relieve that mental pressure of all of the papers around. Now, really quickly, I wanted to hop over to the comments and say hi over here and see what everybody had to say. Now, Judy asked, how do you determine what should be in a binder versus in a file in the computer? Okay, so for me, like I mentioned, there are kind of three categories, right? I have the active papers. So those are things that I have something that I have to do with. They're active. There's a to-do item associated with them. Those papers go into my action file, which I'll talk about in a minute. I have archive papers. So those would be things like paid bills, tax returns that have been filed, credit reports. These are things that I'm not accessing often. So those would be things that I would either scan because I probably won't need to access them again. I'm just keeping them in case. So I would either scan them if you are good with technology and trust scanning, or I would put them in the file cabinet. Because if you're not accessing them often, you can have your file cabinet in a place that's not super convenient to reach because you aren't going into it very often, right? So all of those papers that you very rarely, if ever, will need to access file cabinet. And then if it's something that you want to access often, so medical, like exercise articles that you've pulled out because you're starting new exercise routines and you want to be able to flip through and pull out your exercises for the day. Or like I mentioned, the Spark Life Binder, your important information that you would need to access on a regular basis, like insurance account numbers, bank account numbers, medical information, something that you need to get your hands on quickly. Those would be in a binder because that's what's fast and easy to grab and you're referencing them often. Now, if it's research, like articles that you've pulled out and you don't know if you're going to access it, you're keeping it kind of just in case, those I would not put into a binder. The binders are for things that you are accessing often. If you're not accessing it often, that would be the file cabinet or scanning it to your computer. Now, scanning, the nice thing is it's still easy to access. So if you did want access, even when you're away from home, you could scan things to Google Drive. And that's another great thing for scanning. So if it's something that you do want access to both at home And while you're out, scanning is helpful as well. But hopefully that clears it up a little bit. So binders are for the things that you access often for reference, not to-do items, they're reference. File cabinet would be for things that you really probably will never have to access, but you need to keep it just in case. And then your action file is for things that have to-do items still attached to them. There's something you have to do. So Cindy says, I should probably put them in a binder. That's awesome. Thomas says, I keep binders for the main areas of life. Warranty. Peggy says that she keeps warranties, guarantees, things like that in a binder. Those are great because those are something that you would probably want to access again when something goes wrong. Susan says, I used to cut out exercises for the gym in the binder with separations for each body part and for cardio. That's a perfect example, Susan. Yes, perfect example, because that binder can go with you and you can access it really easily. Judy says, I've heard a lot of info about binders, but have not understood how to use them. This is clarifying for me. Thank you. Yay. Oh, that's wonderful. Lynn says she keeps in a binder her emergency medical folder, the Spark Life binder, and folders for other items, an accordion file for house appliance information. Yes, that's great. Sometimes those get a bit heavy for a binder, right? So Thomas keeps like tax and financial, health insurances, apartment information, bank accounts, utility contracts, subscriptions. You keep a lot of different life things in the binders. That's great. BT says, I keep my physical therapy exercise sheets in a binder. Perfect example. Yes, because you regularly access those, I would imagine. Peg says, hi from Chattanooga. I have a Susanna binder for my notes from these Thursday talks. Yes, wonderful. You've got the Susanna binder. I love it. I remember talking about creating a Susanna binder. I love that. Cindy says, I need to organize papers as they're on the floor. Yeah, well, hopefully this and the next month's worth of paper talks will help you out. Thomas says, I got Cam Scanner, $20 a year. I'm guessing that's probably a phone app, but a quick scanner. So that's great. Having an easy scanner is such a relief, right? It makes it so much easier. And he says, oh my goodness, to Cindy, I love it. Melanie says, help with saving genealogy papers such as obituaries and newspaper articles found online, etc. Yes, and those are good things for a binder if you're actively doing research for genealogy. So that way you can flip and find, you can do it by person or by family branch. Genealogy papers it's like their own world of paper organization. They've got various systems, but binders are great for those because if you're still actively doing research, you would want to pull that information up a lot. Scanning is also very, very good for genealogy papers because in the file name, you could put multiple different tags so you can find things easily. So good one. Marilyn says that she has one binder for medical information. And Lynn says to Melanie, she says, me too, an organization as far as genealogy papers. Yeah, Cindy says, yeah, Thomas, I know it's not good. You are not alone. I am pretty sure if we asked how many people have some papers on the floor right now, I believe even I have a couple on the floor at the moment because I have a project going on. You're welcome, Judy. Cindy says she has accordion folders. I'm not going to read all of these, but really quickly, Lavette says she keeps recipes in a binder and sheet protectors and medical information. Recipes are a great example as well. I keep my recipes also in a binder so that way I can just flip to the recipe that I need. Good one. Judy says, you mentioned Genius Scan and Google Scanner. Are they safe for confidential information? So I really just use Genius Scan and I've had no problem so far. What you want to do, read through the privacy policy and just make sure that you're comfortable with it. But for me, Genius Scan has been great. I just use it for my daily papers. If I need anything super confidential scanned, then I actually use a scanner that I plug into my computer. So if I was doing my tax returns and scanning those, I would probably not do Genius Scan where I'm going to send it to the cloud because I would not send those and save those in the cloud. I would just want those to go straight to my computer. Good question. Yeah, Lavette says genealogy webinar information and of course her Spark Life binder are in binders. I love it. And BT has the medical binder that she takes to doctors. Fantastic. You guys, you're figuring this out. You're doing great with your binders. I love that. So we talked about binders for reference materials, right? And we talked about scanning items that you probably won't need to refer to or that you might want access to when you're away from home. Now, when you have a large amount of papers, though, it can be overwhelming thinking about scanning and putting things in binders and even getting started, right? So, the best trick for papers is to break them into small steps because, as a whole, a large paper project can seem so overwhelming, right? And we look at a pile and we think, "Ugh, that could be hours of work. I don't know what I'm going to find in there. What things might I have to do that I'm going to discover or that I'll feel bad about because I missed an opportunity?" So if you're breaking it into really tiny steps, it's going to make it so much easier. Your brain won't get in the way and you're not going to build up all of these negative feelings about it as much, right? So, one way that I break it into small steps, if you are trying to do something like go through your old files in your file cabinet, maybe just grab one folder at a time out of your file cabinet and look through the papers and purge the old stuff and then put the folder back in and then walk away, right? Just one folder at a time, maybe one a day, one a week, whatever works with your schedule. Another way is maybe every once in a while, if you have paper piles or a laundry basket full of papers, grab just 10 papers, 10 papers a day, and then only look through those and sort those out, decide keep or go, and then walk away. Or you could, if you have like a lot of shredding, right? I know for me, I get a lot of shredding. Maybe every time you walk past the shredder, you have a box next to it, you just put a couple papers in the shredder as you walk by to keep that shredding lean and not have it build up. Or sometimes I even set a timer, maybe a 10-minute timer, either on your phone or set the kitchen timer for 10 minutes and only work on papers for 10 minutes, sorting through the old papers and then walk away. But the whole point is to break it down into a tiny, tiny step. That way you don't feel overwhelmed. It does not feel like a massive project and you can do it more often. If you're waiting until you have 2 hours to sit down and sort papers, it's very unlikely that that's going to happen often, especially because when you do have the time, a lot of times our brains suck all of our energy and motivation out of us at that time and we can't even get started. But we can do the tiny, tiny steps. If we do it every single day, you're going to get farther faster than if you wait until you have large chunks of time. So one of the things that I recommend and that I use is the Paper Path course. So in October, I will be opening up enrollment for the Paper Path course again, but that's broken down into tiny steps also. The Paper Path course, if we have any of our course students in here, I'd love to hear what you think of the Paper Path course, but it's broken down into one tiny step at a time to help you organize all of your papers. And we're talking like 10, 15-minute steps. So if you could just do a step a day from this course and you don't have to worry about all the other steps, just do one step a day, then you're going to make it through really quickly. So breaking it down into one tiny step at a time is going to relieve all of that pressure and the overwhelm and make it not seem like such a huge, nasty project. All right? Okay, so really quickly, Cindy says, it never feels like the right time to organize papers. That's exactly how I always felt too, which is why just 10 minutes a day or 10 papers a day, and it's going to be so much easier, right? And I will share a little trick on how to do this in just a minute as well. Thomas, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. I think that you're saying one paper at a time. But yeah, if you just break it into small steps, it'll go super, super, super fast. Okay, so we talked about binders, right? For all of our reference material that we refer to often. Talked about scanning stuff that we probably won't actually need again, but we have to keep it just in case. So that way it's not filling up our file cabinets and getting in the way. And we talked about breaking it into small steps. So that way it's not this huge overwhelming project. And if you do a tiny little step every single day, then it's really, you kind of get into a groove and you don't mind it as much after a little bit. So how do you do that, right? How do you sort just 10 papers if it feels like your whole system's overwhelming? Well, you're going to use broad categories to start with. Now, I talk about this a lot in the Paper Path course. We actually have an entire section on, it's called Quick Sort, and we talk about the onion method and how to sort through a massive amount of papers, one step at a time. But basically, you're going to use broad categories. So when you're sorting papers, if you have your stack of papers to sort, the first thing you're going to want to do, and this is part of the onion method. This is sort of a simplified version of the onion method, which I teach in the Paper Path course. So all of my course members, you know what I'm talking about here. But your first step to sorting through papers when you're doing your 10 minutes or 10 papers a day is just sort them into keep or go, right? Keep or go. Don't worry about where you're going to keep the keep papers. Don't worry about how you're going to let go of the papers to go. You're only deciding keep or go. And if you do that every single day, 10 papers, 10 minutes, one file folder, then you are going to get through that pile really fast because your brain is only choosing between two choices. So that's so much easier for your brain than if it's trying to decide, okay, where do I need to keep it within 100 different file folders, or do I need to scan it? Or, I mean, that's too many choices for your brain to make with every single individual paper. So if you try to sort it into its final destination, you will get exhausted and miserable and stall out. So broad categories to start with, keep or go, until you've got all of those backed up papers into keep or go, right? And once you're done sorting, you can let go of the go ones really quickly. Shred what needs to be shred, recycle what doesn't, and just let those go really quickly at the end of each session. But the easiest way to do that is to have two boxes sitting next to a paper pile. So that way, even if you're just walking past your sorting area, you could stop for a second, grab a couple papers, and make the decision. But you can have one box called keep, one box called go. Just sort into those two until you've sorted through all of your papers. I guarantee that those papers, you will have so much less. It all sounds weird. So much less papers once you're done with that, because so many of the papers in our backup papers are old and can go. But it makes this project look huge because it makes it look like you're going to have to do something with every single paper. But you don't. Most of those are just garbage. They're recycle or shred. So sort into keep or go first. And then once you've got keep or go done, you've let go of your go, now all you've got left is your keep papers, right? That's when you can sort into the next set of broad categories. We're not going to put it in the final destination and try to decide, it's a bank statement that needs to go in the Wells Fargo folder and the bank in the subfolder ending in 1084. No, that's too many choices again, because you'll probably have a good amount of keep papers. So we're going to sort them into another set of broad categories. Like I said, this is the onion method. We go really in depth into this in the Paper Path course. But basically, and these are some little trays that I have, these sorting trays that I use sometimes for papers. At noon in the Member Thursday Talk, we're talking about all of my favorite paper organizing tools. So I'll talk about these trays as well as some of my other actual products that help me keep my papers organized or help me organize papers. So if you're a Path member, then make sure to catch the noon session. And I'm talking about all the different products. So I won't go into the trays right now. But with your keep papers, you're going to then, I'll show you really quickly. You have your different broad categories. So you might have, say, finance and career and medical and legal. So those might be 5 of your broad categories that you have, right? So you will just take the keep papers and sort those into the broad categories. So you might, when you're looking at the papers, you're like, okay, is this financial? Is it medical? Is it career? Is it legal? Which one of those broad categories is it? So easy to sort that way because your brain does not have to engage even, because it's very easy to tell if it's medical or financial, right? So you look at it, okay, financial, okay, this is medical, this one, okay, this is legal, and you're going to keep doing that for your entire keep pile. You'll also have one other category called other for the stuff that's not part of any of those other categories. So if there's one that does not fall into those broad categories, put it in the other pile for now. And then you just keep doing that. I call it the onion because it's like layers, right? So once you got all of those categories sorted out, then you can take the financial. And those financial ones, you can sort into smaller categories within just financial. And breaking it down into those broad categories means your brain is not trying to decide on every paper between 100 different choices. Your brain is deciding between 10 or fewer choices. So the broader the categories, the easier it is for your brain to make those decisions. And this works really well as well within your filing cabinet. So those file folders, try not to have too many very specific small categories within your file cabinet. So you don't want, the financial section to have bank accounts, and within that have Wells Fargo, and within that have bank account number ending in 1084. That's going to make it so much harder to find what you need easily, because your brain will get exhausted quickly when trying to file into that system. If you have just broad categories, and you could have just bank accounts and have everything for the bank accounts in one folder called bank accounts, that's an option. So within the Paper Path course, I also have, based on your personality type, we have a personality paper organizing personality quiz that you take. And based on your personality type, I have specifically how to set up your file systems. So how to set up your file folders within your file cabinet is one part. And we have these blueprints for, if you're an administrator type, set it up like this. And I tell you exactly what order put them in, what to label each folder. And based on your personality type, our administrators can do more detail, our inventors, fewer detail items is better. So broader categories. But that's something that you might want to look into. Okay, really quickly, let's look at the comments before I go to the last ones. Let's see. Oh, hi. Lynn says, hi, I'm here. Judy says, how much is the Paper Path course? I know that we're probably raising the price. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm so sorry, because we only open it twice a year. So it's something that's not quite in the top of my head right now. But I promise, if you are on my email list, I will be sending out announcements before it opens and information through the email when it does open. So make sure that you're on my email list, and just keep an eye out in October, towards the end of October. That's when it will open up, and I'll have more information then. I just don't remember right off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. You can also find out a little bit more about it and get on the waiting list. If you go to SuzannaKaye.com and you go to the store section, then you can click on the Paper Path course and you can sign up for the waiting list to make sure that you get those notifications. And a lot of times we will actually open up enrollment to those on the waiting list right before we open it up to everybody else. So check that out too. BT says, I set a time on my calendar to purge papers. I put on some good music, have some tea near me, and I start sorting. That is perfect. Love, love, love it. Let's see. Thomas was talking about his lazy method of organizing papers. I love it. That's funny. Jen says, I get to the broad category sorting and then usually stall because the next layer is so boring. And that's when breaking it down in those small steps is so much easier, because it's true. Paper organizing can be so boring, right? But if you're just doing 10 minutes a day, then it's not anywhere near as boring. You can just leave those 5 to 10 categories out and sort into them, once a day until they're done. Thomas says, Susanna suggests rightfully from going to general to specific categories, pile to binders, etc. Yep. Susan says, I think it also depends on your organizing style when you get past the broads, detailed or larger categories. Absolutely. Yes. And that's why in the Paper Path course, we do the quiz. And my administrators, you do a lot more detail, because it would drive you crazy to have too broad, right? But when you're sorting, definitely go for the broad as administrators. And I have some tricks on how to get your file system set up if you do like that detail, how to get the system set up quickly, but still get it to that point where you get all the detail that you love. So a lot of times when you are super detailed, you stall out because you try to set up the extreme detail from the very beginning. And that makes it very difficult to succeed in getting the system set up. So you never quite get everything into the system, right? So it kind of falls apart. You don't get to that maintain section. But within the Paper Path course, I do talk about how, if you like the detail, how to get there quickly so you can still have your detail without exhausting your brain. But that's so true. Your personality type absolutely determines how much detail you'll have. Oh, someone on Facebook says, will there be a replay? I just found this. Yes, there's a replay on YouTube, and it will be available for 1 month. So you can check it out for 1 month on YouTube after this. And you can also check out some of the older ones. That's fantastic. Yeah, Jen says, organizing personality type helps explain a lot. And Cindy says, yes, the sorting is very boring. Yeah, that's why break it into small steps. Do it during group hikes. If you're a path member, then group hikes are the perfect time to do some of the sorting because you're side by side with the rest of us over Zoom, and it's so much more fun. Savy says, onion method is great. Really helped me tackle months of papers. Yay! Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, Sylvia says, going crazy with my papers, never ending. Yeah, one step at a time, those small steps. Ellen says, I have all of my bank statements separated by savings and checking, and they're in order. I have several years in my file cabinet. Where should I keep the paper statements from prior years so I'll have more space in my file cabinet? I don't want to go paperless. I'll never find anything. That's a good question, and I can't go into the details of that right now because it's a very long answer. But Ellen, I know that you are a PATH member. So what I will do is for our next office hours, I'm actually saving right now. I'm saving your question. Our next office hours or group hike, if you're on the group hike, I will actually answer that question for you on video and share that with you because it's a very good question, but probably too in-depth. We'll never get through this if I go into that now. And also within the Paper Path course, I also address that within the Paper Path course as well. So a couple different resources for you there. All right, we talked about binders, we talked about scanning, we talked about breaking it into small steps so it's not as boring, and so that way you can get through the large amount without being overwhelmed. And we talked about our broad categories, right? And remember at noon, my members, we will talk about the tools to make this easier, all the products I love. But finally, our last one is stop the inflow of papers by using something like an action file. So the best thing that you can do if you have a paper problem is to make sure that any new papers are not adding to the problem, right? So what I have, and I should have pulled it out already, but I did not. Here we go. This is something I will be teaching in October if you don't already have one set up. It's called an action file, and we will do a free challenge on how to set up your own action file in October. It will be October, I believe, 17th. Yes, October 17th for 1 week. I'm breaking down into tiny steps how to set up and use an action file for all of your incoming papers. So every single paper that comes into your home goes into this file. And then it goes out and either gets purged or goes into your system. So setting up a system such as an action file for your papers that are coming in so they're not adding to the problem. That is step one. That's actually the first milestone in the Paper Path course. We set up an action file. We make sure that all of our incoming papers are handled. They don't get lost. If there's to-dos, then we remember to do them. If they need to be filed, then we have a system to get them filed or shredded or scanned. And that way they're not adding to the problem. So if you do nothing else, make sure you set up an action file or a similar incoming paper system. And October 17th in our free challenge, we will talk about how to set up and use an action file. And it's something where you don't buy it from me. You probably have all of the supplies that you need at home already, quite frankly, and you could just set it up. Okay, so really quickly in the comments, oh, Ellen says, thank you. You're so welcome, Ellen, definitely. And then Alyssa says, my action file has become a storage file in my drawer. Yes, well, Alyssa, you can go through the challenge and touch it up and get, reconnected with that action file and get that going again. It's one of those things, everything with paper systems, sometimes, we set something up and it might fall apart because we just aren't in the habit yet. So don't give up. Reconnect, maybe adjust something, and then try it out again. But you've got this. All right, so let's do our recap. And really quickly, while we do the recap, tell me, what small step will you take today to get organized? All right, we talked about binders, for commonly referenced documents. Using binders for the stuff that you actually reference all the time or frequently is going to help you get your hands on those items faster, and it won't fill up your file drawer. We talked about scanning items that you probably won't need to refer to. So all of those things you keep just in case that you probably won't need, but you're keeping just in case you might need it. If you can scan it, that's going to save you tons of space in your file cabinet, make purging so much easier, and you won't end up with those overstuffed file drawers. Breaking it into small steps was number 3. So this way, if you do just maybe one folder at a time from your file cabinet and purge the old papers, or grab 10 papers and sort them or file them. Maybe you shred as you walk past the shredder, or you set a timer for 10 minutes, but breaking these into small steps make it so much less overwhelming and less boring, because sorting papers can be really, really boring. Using broad categories is number 4. So broad categories is great for both storage within the file cabinet if you have problems maintaining a super detailed system, but most definitely for sorting your papers. If you have a bunch of paper piles and baskets and boxes to sort, using the broad category, the onion method to sort them is such a big help. And then finally, make sure that you're stopping the inflow of papers from hitting those piles. So make sure that these new papers are not adding to the problem and they actually have a system to go into as soon as they arrive at your home. And in October, we will set up an action file together for all of your incoming papers if you don't already have that. And then at noon, remember, the Path members are going to hear about my favorite paper organizing tools that I cannot live without. These are the products that make it so much easier to get my papers organized and keep them organized. Talk about the trays, the sorting trays. Can't see them. There you go. The sorting trays that I use. And we'll talk about some of the other different tools that I use on a regular basis. Sorry, the dog is desperate for attention. So tell me, what small step do you plan to take today to make your day more productive and your life more organized? Melanie says, didn't talk about active papers and how to handle them. The active papers actually go within the action file. So those would go along with your incoming papers. Active papers, you want to make sure get collected in one place. So that way they're not wandering about and you know what the next action is for them. So the action file, which is the first milestone within the Paper Path course, but it's also something that we will talk about during our free challenge. We will set one up together and learn how to use it in October, on October 17th. So that, good question. That is where the active papers go. All right, BT says, keeping a shred container near my quote unquote mail desk and also near my in-home work desk helps reduce the paper stack. Yes, that's fantastic. If you can separate out those shred ones really fast, it's going to make a big difference. Oh, Joyce says, I needed this so much. Oh, I'm so glad. She says that she is going to begin, keep, or go. That's her small step that she's going to take. Oh, fantastic. I love it. All right, so coming up, like I mentioned, at noon, we will talk with our Pathfinders about my favorite organizing tools. If you're not already a Path member, then I would love to have you join us. You can join anytime at this link. It's in the description of the video, SuzannaKaye.live/join-Pathfinders-membership. And along with the Path, we have the exclusive Thursday talks where I'll talk about the tools today, and you can catch the replay if you need to. But we do group hikes, we have text message reminders, we have all sorts of fun stuff within the Paper Path, and office hours, which was really fun this past week with our office hours. So coming up, oh, don't sniff at the microphone, on October 1st, just a reminder, starting October 1st, these replays will be limited to only 30 days worth on the YouTube channel after this. So if you have missed out on any replays that you want to catch that are older than a month old, make sure to catch them before October 1st because they are going away. If you are a Path member, you will still have 6 months worth, 6 months to a year access to all of the replays. But for the general public, it will just be 30 days. So September 29th, that's next week on Thursday night, I will be live with our photo organizing webinar. You can register at suzannakaye.com and click on the store link to register for the webinar. If you can't make it live, that's okay. I'll send you the replay that you can download and keep forever. If you're a PATH member, our next group hikes for September are September 24th, that's this Saturday, and September 27th on Tuesday. And we will hop on for 2 hours Zoom session and work side by side together and get some stuff done, including sorting papers. We also have the Action File Challenge, October 17th through 23rd. And this will be both by email and in the Facebook group, the Home Organizing Challenges Facebook group. So I do not have the registration link set up quite yet, but hopefully next week I plan to, and you can register for that challenge. So you don't have to be on Facebook to do the challenge. Let's see. I'm probably going to miss some of the comments, but Marilyn says keeping reference materials in binders. That's the small step that she's going to do. Sylvia is working on doing mail daily, paying her bills as they come. She's still working on that. Thomas's small step is gathering all the lying around papers on desks and sorting them into binders, purging them, or putting them into an action fast pile. Wonderful. Penny says that she'll go through the basket on her desk to sort and file. She'll probably need to use binders. Yes. Vicky says she's asking noon Eastern. So the webinar, I'm not sure what you're asking about. The webinar is at 6 p.m. Eastern time next Thursday. The noon is for the PATH members, noon Eastern time today. So in like 12 minutes is when the PATH exclusive, what's it called? The exclusive Thursday talk where we're talking about the tools. Yes, noon Eastern time for that. Cindy says, that's awesome, Thomas. Melanie says, my small step is gathering all loose papers in the house and putting one box or area to start the keep or go step. Yay, I love it. Love that. Judy says, is Facebook part of the PATH membership? Yes. So part of the PATH membership is your own private Facebook group where you can ask specific questions, you get more access, and we share more resources there. Yeah. So Peggy says, thanks again, Susie. You're welcome. Lynn is going to sort the papers on her desk. And Ellen says, yes, September 27th is the Jewish New Year, so she won't be able to attend because of Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, for the group hike. Not a problem at all. I know that's why I do so many different group hikes because there is, so much that goes on, but there will still be the replay and the September 24th one. That one is when I will answer your question. You can always check out the answer via the replay as well. So hopefully that helps. Thomas says, thank you very much. Always a delight with you, Lady K. I love it. Well, perfect. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week for our next Thursday talk, and hopefully also for the photo organizing webinar, which is a really good one. It's one of the most popular ones. I love you, and members, I will see you in about 10 minutes for your exclusive Thursday talks. And we're talking about some products that will help you out. Talk to you later. I love you so much. Bye-bye now.